This will be the last video covering how to operate the Dataflow editor. So we're only one video away from turning you loose on solving your first problem challenge. Now, if you recall a couple of videos ago, we mentioned that any of the work that's currently showing in the Dataflow editor will be automatically saved when you quit the program and automatically restored when you relaunch. Well, okay, we're back, and you want to relaunch your program if you haven't already. And that should bring you back to your data flow that you worked on to generate a horizontal line segment. Here's mine. And what I'd like to show you first off is how this line segment module computes and holds the data on the line segment, but it needn't be visualized. So if you recall, we can do an alt click to snuff out the graphics. And so we call this feature hidden features, all right? And if you hover the mouse over the right edge of the module, or what we call the output edge of the module, as you go up and down, you'll see a list of all the underlying data features in the line segment. So here's endpoint 1. Here's endpoint 2. These numbers line up perfectly with what it's receiving as inputs. If I want to snuff out those outputs, I'll just do a shift click. But you'll also note that I can go down a layer lower than the endpoint. I can just pull out the X value of endpoint 1. Or if I want, I can also get the Y value separately. And so these are going to be very useful when you get into the problem challenges where you'll have some given data object and you'll need to go inside of it and pull out more specific outputs. So we'll cover this again when we get to that point where you need to use it. The next feature we're going to look at is Save Calculator. So remembering that when you quit the app, it will automatically save whatever is showing in the Dataflow editor and will recover it when you relaunch the program. But that only provides to store the current thing you're working on. What if you want to be able to save a number of these different calculators and give them names and different file locations? All right, so I'm going to demonstrate how you would do that. So let's just, before we do that, turn the graphics back on for the line segment. And what we'll do is hit our Save Calculator button. Now yours will look a little different than mine. Yours is going to look like this. So it'll take you to a folder called DFG 2D Calculators that the software is already set up for you. It should be located in your data space and within your documents folder. So it'll be a folder within documents. And the idea here is that you would give it a name. So let's call this our line seg demo. Or let's call it even more specific, we'll call it the horizontal line seg demo. Okay, so we'll hit save, and you'll notice that when you save a calculator, it clears out the editor. Why? Well, it's assumed that you can always get back to it very easily if you want. All you have to do is hit open calculator. It'll take you to that same folder you were last accessed. And so you can get back to what you've saved very easily. Okay, now what we're going to do is to modify this calculator into something completely different, and that'll give us a reason to want to understand how you would save as. So to do this, what we're going to do is take your line segment and throw it in the dumpster. Okay. And I want you to go down to this miscellaneous and give yourself a data switch. We're going to plunk it down in the same location we had the line segment. It's going to be something completely different, but we can pipe our endpoint 1 and endpoint 2 in the A and B, like so. And what this object does is it acts as a data switch where the output will take on either what's being piped in to the top input or what's being piped into the bottom input. And the decision that chooses is determined by a binary bit input here in the middle. So let's play around with that a bit. No pun intended. So if you go over and you get yourself a bit module, and let's just snap that in place. If you double click to assign a value to one of these bit modules, you'll see your choices are either a 0 or a 1. And in terms of logic, 0 will stand for false, 1 will stand for true. So let's start out by setting it to true. You'll notice that when the bit input is true, the switch selects the top input to go to the output. And let's just go back and set it the other way. So the 0 input or false value of the input will select from the bottom input and pipe that out the output. Now the other thing we can do here with our alt click on the V is we can see how we can go back and forth graphically since this output is being visualized and it is subject to a binary switch. We can toggle it back and forth like so. Okay, so that introduces you to the data switch. But now let's go take it a step further and play around with this binary input. So there's other ways to calculate binary decisions besides just a variable that you set the value of. So let's detach, and I'm going to go over here. I want you to do this with me. In your real numbers, take the bottom left-hand button, which is a real number greater than comparator, and let's snap that baby in there. And let's go back and get two real number modules. Snap those in place. So this is a real number comparator that computes a logical decision. It's going to be either true or false, and that'll be determined by whether the A input is greater than the B input. So let's try an example. Let's put in a 2 and downstairs a 1. So 2 is greater than 1. It passes a true value for the comparison, and the switch responds as you would expect. If we go back and we now change the lower input to a 3, you'll notice now that the comparison evaluates false. 2 is not greater than 3, and the switch evaluates to the lower input. Okay, so what we're going to do now, since we haven't saved this work, we're going to once again go into Save Calculator, and it'll take us to the same folder. Normally we would just type in a new name, but if we forget, let's say we just forget and we hit save, the software is smart enough to go look at what you've got in your Dataflow editor does not exactly match what was saved in this horizontal line segment demo. And so do you want to overwrite it? No. And you'll notice this puts you into a Save As dialog. And of course, this is where we're going to change this name of the file. So I'm just going to call this my data switch demo. Okay, it's able to save that, clears out the editor. And when we go back and now we look at our recent results we've saved for calculators, we've got both of these things. So I got this one. If I want to go get the other one, I can just clear. If the clear is smart enough to know that you haven't made any changes yet to that horizontal line segment. Let's open the data switch. There's our data switch. So let me just show you by example. If let's say I were to change one of these numbers, I'll make this a minus 210 was 200. And I go to clear. Aha. So the clear button's smart enough to check to see whether any changes have been made relative to what we read in from the calculator file. It does detect that. And if we're not interested in saving the change, we'll trash it. If we've done this in error, we'll cancel. But if we want to save what we just did, again, we're in this. And the way we would make a version 2 of our data switch demo is to just add some characters to the name. And then voila, now that we've got 2 data switch demos, and one of them's a version 2. Okay, so we didn't cover all of these buttons. Don't worry about it. You'll be introduced to them naturally in the problem challenges. So I'll just close the lesson on the Dataflow editor by pointing out once again, you can always get to the guide, and I'm not going to belabor what's in here. We did cover all of the features in the Dataflow editor, and they're all summarized in the guide. So if you forget how to do something specific, you just look through the edit goal you're trying to achieve, and then over on the right, it'll tell you how to do it. Congratulations! You've made it through the preparation steps to be ready to dive in to your first problem challenge.